time, it takes effort, it can be draining. But if you don't have hope, you're going to give up. And so that hope is so important. And I think about people like, Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Ida Wells and so many folk who came way before me. I mean, you think about a Frederick Douglass and the Dred Scott decision. How do you maintain hope for an enslaved people, for black people, when you've just heard and read a U.S. Supreme Court decision that says you're basically not human and you don't have any damn rights that white people have to respect? But he and others maintained hope and fought vigorously for a better world. I think about, we just celebrated, what was it? I think it's Veterans Day. And I think about World War I and how black soldiers who were sacrificing their lives for this country, for so-called democracy around the world, and protecting the democracy in this country, were the French troops. Those in France felt that the black soldiers were fighting valiantly. They were referring to them by their proper rank. So if you were a sergeant, they were treating you as a sergeant. If you were something higher, and the white command was upset about that. And they said, you can't treat black people, even though they're soldiers, equally. And so the French troops had to deny awards that should have been earned by black troops and soldiers who sacrificed and actually died in the line of duty in fighting the enemy for this country because of this otherization. And somehow these soldiers came back from that war, and I think they were hopeful that we were on the verge of a better society. But instead, what happened? Many of them were beat, lynched, shot and killed. One who was on his way home to North Carolina was attacked by law enforcement in South Carolina and rendered blind for the rest of his life. But then we get to World War II. The black soldiers still volunteered and still went to war and still fought for this country. So over all of these generations, so many people who've had it more difficult than I have made the sacrifice and the struggle for the America that we hope to see, not just for America, but for us as a people. And so a part of me says I owe it to them to maintain hope, because it's as a result of their sacrifices, I think, that I have been in a position to do the things that I do, and I certainly want those who come after me to benefit from whatever effort I can contribute to the beautiful struggle.
And what are some of those, I heard you talk about your hero, Bryan Stevenson, or him being one of your heroes.
Yeah.
I see you wearing EJI cap. And so clearly Equal Justice Institute is an organization that you, Initiative, I might have messed
Equal Justice Initiative.
Initiative,
yeah.
That you put a lot of faith in, and I've also been in their memorial, one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. But can you talk about that, but also other resources as somebody's trying to understand the truth, whether it's looking at the history of the of soldiers of color in the wars, or what are resources that you trust?
Well, certainly you're right. I mean, Equal Justice Initiative certainly has just done an amazing job of putting in the forefront the nexus between our racial past and a lot of the challenges that we're facing today. And so, whether it's just through the museums that they have built over the years, the written materials, some of the books that, Just Mercy that and TED Talk that Brian Stevenson has done, and so certainly, and just the legal work that they've done. I mean, he's argued 4 or 5 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He's gotten good results in a number of those. He and his staff and attorneys have been responsible for the release of 100 or more people from death row in various places across the South who were wrongfully convicted. So certainly the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Cheryl and I, and the work that they're doing, I think is critical. But then, I think about organizations, right here within the, state of North Carolina, organizations that are working with, criminal justice impacted people trying to reenter society. You got Second Chance Alliance, you got organizations like, For Justice, you got, the work that the North Carolina Justice Center is doing, the North Carolina NAACP. So there are a number of entities that we can call upon to help address some of the challenges that we're facing today. But then there are also scholars who are contributing to this work. Some historians, some sociologists. I mean, I think about people like Elizabeth Hinton, who I believe she's at Princeton now. She was at Harvard. But she has done groundbreaking work on the history of mass incarceration. Because I think sometimes in order to tear a system, dismantle something, you need to know how it was created in the first place. And she, and then before her, Heather Ann Thompson, another historian, has done phenomenal work. You've got lawyers and law professors like Ian Haney Lopez, who I think is one of the best scholars on critical race theory in this country. We don't know a lot about him here I think he's better known on the West Coast than here, but people like Carol Anderson. So there's so many scholars that are a part of, they're not sitting in the ivory tower, they're connected to movements and to efforts to bring about change. And those are the scholars that I feel closest to, and we're fortunate that we have some, here in the state of North Carolina that's so supportive of a number of our efforts. And, one that readily comes to mind is somebody like Frank Baumgartner when it comes down to policing and data analysis and things of that nature. He's right here with us, and we are able to build upon the work that he and others like him have done to help mobilize and activate movements for change. And so those are just, a few entities that I've mentioned. Of course, there's numerous others, but those kind of readily come to mind.
And I keep on saying it's my last question, but this is my last question. And appreciate you sharing your time with us, and obviously your leadership for decades in North Carolina. I personally appreciated the mentorship you provided to me. I'm just curious, as you have created and led NC Cred as an organization, that idea is about collaboration, and so I'm curious where you think collaboration has a role here. And I'm specifically curious, you mentioned the task force. Some people disagree with the idea of, if you're talking about how to fix racial inequities in the system, that individuals who would argue against that, like law enforcement, sheriff's association, DAs, would be at that initial table when you're even generating the ideas. And so my question is, as someone who has embraced collaboration in some ways, where do you think it fits?
Well, I mean, I think coming from, being someone who's an attorney, who started out, over 40 years ago doing criminal defense, and understanding the sheer power of certain players in that system. That if you are not in conversation with them, if you're not at the table with them, then I think it's almost impossible to realize, the change that we hope to see. And one of the challenges, and it does create a challenge though, because there has to be if you've got people sitting at the table when NC Cred was first created, we had law enforcement, we had judges, we had DAs, we had activists, we had legal scholars, all at the table. And people weren't viewing these issues from the same racial justice lens. And so sometimes it takes time to get that common language, that everybody feels comfortable, that we're talking about the same things when we say we need to do X, Y, Z, and also building trust. But I think it's important to have the others at the table also, because we need to understand those systems better, and to get the necessary information that we need to effectuate the change that we want to see. I mean, I think we need to know exactly what those people do, how they do it, and how it can be done differently. And I think it's important to be in conversation with them in order to figure that all out. So, it doesn't necessarily makes for some difficult conversations and some contentiousness and disagreements, but nobody said it was going to be easy. And that's just one piece of it. So it's just like lawyers are an important part of the system, but you're not going to solve all the problems in the criminal justice system through litigation and lawsuits. So you have to have movements. You got to have people who are willing to demonstrate and protest and make noise and call attention, because you need that public pressure also. So I think there are multiple avenues and tools that have to be utilized to bring about change that we hope to see. But sitting at the table with people in positions of power is a part of that happening also.
Well, that sounds like a good opportunity to thank you again, James. That's James Williams, former Chief Public Defender of Orange and Chatham counties, now the chair of NC Cred, part of many organizations, and really a leader in the criminal justice reform movement for decades. And I want to thank again Tim Conder, who delivered our Second Chance Sunday sermon today, and then sat with us for what I thought was a really authentic, good conversation. So thank you very much, sir. Yep. Y'all have a good day.